Faces on paper, curled at the edges, names said once and swallowed by time. Rooms went quiet, streets moved on. Something about this never died. Cold hands on cold files, dust where the truth should be. Every lie leaves a footprint, every monster bleeds eventually. For the missing that never came home, for the cases they tried to forget, for the killers counting days in the dark, thinking they're done with that. We keep digging, keep the light on.
All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is 12 Gauge, and this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. This is your first time to my channel. Thank you so much. I must say, I'm thankful for everything that comes my way regarding the subscribers, as well as the people that continue to show me love, even though they're not here. They come into the replay and they let me know that they pop in and say hello. Man, I knocked my camera over a while ago, and well, this is what I've been trying to do for a little bit. So anyways, if you were here last night, then you were with me going over the Epstein files. We got to another place earlier, and tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a video of one of the survivors that was able to escape that horrific experience that she had happened at Epstein Island. So, if you're ready for that to happen, give me a hoo yeah, and we'll get that going on. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Before I do this, I want to go ahead and put this disclaimer up. So hold on for a second. Let me go ahead and put the disclaimer up. That way people know that this is in fair use, and I'm only doing this for educational purposes and to give some kind of insight on this case, and I'm giving that for educational purposes only. I understand that the original person who did this video did the original, so I'm gonna just go ahead and play it, and here we go. Her name is Anneke Lucas.
So I was 6 years old when I was first trafficked into the network, and my mother or my stepfather really did not love me at all. I had a moment of grace, and in that moment I end up seeing this monster as the child that was afraid and that had become this man, and I saw all his fears. He gave up and he said, "You're so dead, nothing to be done with you. T'es tellement morte, blah, blah, blah." I was like, I feel dead, and I felt, now I'm bad, I'm dead.
As a child, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just took it. And then later on, I realized that he really had been speaking of himself.
And this is tragic to know that somebody was involved with this animal. But the glorious thing is that she made it out. And I have to stop this periodically because I don't want to get copyrighted. Here we go.
Projection.
That he was projecting. For him, he would do anything now to make me scream.
Uh-huh.
He must have ordered these bugs. They were not local. They were not native.
Not Belgian bugs.
No, they were about this big. They were dark brown, blackish, and they had pincers. And it's Nihul who led the torture, but he was also indoctrinating other
The other children how to do it.
who had to torture me. So this is how they really take your innocence. Like they start by raping you, but then I think as long as you're a victim in a way, you can hold on to your innocence, you know? But then.
Wow. So, as you heard her say, there were probably Belgian bugs. And as you heard me go over the paperwork earlier, there was some mention of Belgium in some of that paperwork. Hey, JB, how you doing? Hey, April. Thank y'all for being here. And as she says, you can still hang on to your innocence. And that is so sad.
They make you do things, and then they make the children kill.
They make the children kill. And that's the function of the rabbits, to learn how to kill first. Yeah, and at the end of the book, you have had to kill. They made you kill.
And I want to describe how that training started. But the first thing that happened is after the training in the chair. And by the way, in between, I was also, this is not everything that happened there. Much more happened in terms of the mind control. But after that was done, I got a break. And I got to choose a puppy. And I chose the quietest puppy from the litter. So by the time that I did kill the puppy, it was a mercy killing.
Are you kidding me? Those poor children had to kill the animals as well? Wow. Wow.
And from then on, every killing was a mercy killing. And now I want to say something that I've never said before publicly. Hans Harmsen, who was in charge of this place, was the head of the Planned Parenthood of Pro Familia in Germany. I was made to train on what were basically extremely small babies that were alive.
It's good that we went to pray earlier, because this is...
This lady is tremendously strong, y'all. This is tremendously strong, because to suffer the sexual trauma that she went through, everything that she's describing thus far, that would have crippled a lot of people emotionally.
Every killing was a mercy killing. I had to do it. If I don't do it, it'll be worse for the victim.
I think you did the right thing. As strange as that may seem.
No choice.
The best choice given the circumstances.
And then I was told that I was really good at it. And praised for being a good killer.
Wow. She was praised for being a good killer, for being able to kill small animals, to being able to kill small babies after they were disposed of. Wow. This poor soul. This poor soul.
Thank you.
It's very important what you are doing right now.
I've only played 5 minutes of this. This is 4-hour interview. I'm not going to do a whole 4 hours, but I'm going to 5 minutes in, and my heart is hurting for this woman. It is hurting for this woman. Good God. I cannot imagine.
Healing is spiritual because when you integrate, there's magic to it. You know, like I do the work, and then there's a spiritual component to it that is the magical, that I don't know when I'm going to transform, but suddenly I have this inner message that I'm good now, that this is over, that I'm there. So once you have this integration, though, this neural integration, you know that you are innocent. You know that it wasn't your fault. That I speak a lot about the power paradigm. And I realized that I was giving it too much power because I had this vision that it's actually already a ruin.
Oh, yes. It's coming down.
We have been dissolving it with the love, with the heart.
We are. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah, that's true.
A man who rapes a child, it might be hard to believe that that man is actually looking for love. But as the child who was raped by these men, I know that they were. Because I know that they brought this most vulnerable part in themselves to me, which was safe to them. That's to say, the part that was not loved.
That's the most vulnerable part.
Yeah. When you're looking at the evil that people do, they are all looking for the substitute of that. They're looking for the substitute of the true love, which is God.
That is so true. That is so true. And I spoke on this earlier, you know, as far as the control, the method of using young children in order to be able to control them, to manipulate them, to harm them. Because without conscience, you are, in essence, using your brokenness to try to find peace. And that's not an excuse by no means whatsoever. It is sick as all get out, but that in essence is the manifestation of all this.
Dear viewers and listeners, welcome to the third episode of Epogee, a podcast in which I analyze the belief systems of people without passing judgment. That is the real significance of Epogee in Greek, and today I have invited Anneke Lucas, author and survivor of extreme abuse, and advocate for people in the same situation.
as much as I understand it, April, I would say that it is sick. It is sick. It is sick and distorted. I'm not excusing it whatsoever. I'm making excuses for it. You're totally right. Looking for love in little girls. Think of the innocence the little girls or little boys have, the purity. It doesn't make sense to me either. But in the psychological aspect, they understand it as such. It doesn't make sense to me. It's sickening and deranged.
Anneke, welcome to my show.
Hi, Bricht. Very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me. It's very significant to be back in Belgium.
I can imagine. I read your book, and I knew something about these things, but I could not have imagined that it was so dark. And I want to say to the listeners and the viewers that we have been to the chapel first to pray, to be able to handle all the darkness. And I know that for a lot of people, this will seem like totally, absurd, and maybe they won't believe what you say, but I can say now that I believe you.
I see. Okay. Yes. So I would say meditate. I meditate. I pray too, but I'm mostly focused on meditation, I guess, coming from the Eastern traditions. But yes, to be in.
And you would have to in order to have a sense of sanity. Otherwise, I don't know how anybody could be sane with that kind of viciousness that went on in their lives. I have no idea how anyone other than with their faith could overcome this.
In that stillness, I don't think without spirituality, it would be possible to get the understanding that I feel that I have been able to gain over the years, because these events are from my childhood, and I'm almost 60. So I have more than 30 years of healing, and my whole life has been dedicated to this. So if you say people might not believe me, nah, not too many actually. I do get attacked, obviously, but yeah, I'm not really worried about not being believed.
That's one of the things I find particularly inspiring in your story, that it is just not just the sensationalism of the abuse you have suffered, but that you have also overcome all these shocks and the things you've been through. And you're even now a yoga teacher and inspiring other people. And, if anybody would be in deep trouble, you can serve as an inspiration. And that is why I have invited you.
And you're right on point with that. You are right on point with that. Sometimes the most broken people in society can be the biggest inspiration and hope for those that are struggling, that don't understand that they themselves can get through just about anything that's going on in life with the right direction. And if this video tonight reaches anybody that's either watching it or is going to watch it in the future, and it's not about religion, it's not about any of that, it's about the understanding that no matter what happened to you or what has happened to you, there is a way to overcome that. This lady's story is tremendous.
Oh, thank you. I'm not a yoga teacher anymore, but I did, I practiced yoga, and it was a very important part of my healing. Yoga, and then separately meditation. And then I created an organization to bring yoga into the prisons in New York. So I did that for 10 years as well.
Okay. And so in those prisons, I guess you find a lot of people with trauma, just as you had. And that would be the parable of the wounded healer, I think. If you cannot heal another person if you haven't lived through the same thing.
Right. A lot of trauma, obviously a lot of people who are there essentially because of trauma or or poverty, unfortunately also, because I was also in the jails in New York City, but where basically people are put because they don't have money to pay bail for, whatever, a misdemeanor. But I I was really there because prison is itself a very traumatizing place, and people are treated in prisons as the lowest of the low and as completely worthless as human beings. And this is very much how I was treated as a child. And it was very significant to go and to bring hope to, under the pretext of bringing yoga, to bring hope and connection from the heart with people.
And let me intervene right quick, okay? Because anybody who's had any kind of abuse in their lifetime, whether it be physical, spiritual, emotional, sexual, the traumatic event that happened to them and the overcoming and becoming more than the conqueror, you do have this understanding that you can tell people exactly what you went through, but you can show them as well the direction in which to get to the other side. And that is amazing that this woman is able to at least talk about this and to at least be able to help others. And sometimes it's helping others get through their own turmoil that gives you that understanding that your pain is healing.
That are being treated that way all day long, just as I had. And I never had anybody coming to give me hope.
Yeah, that's also something I really will get into some details that always spoke to me when reading your book. That is how much love you felt for your perpetrators, in the sense that they abused you horribly and you always tried to see the person doing the abuse.
Well, I think that my answer, if I may speak on that,
Of course.
it's going to be a little extended because
Take your time.
That love for the perpetrator. So I was 6 years old when I was first trafficked into the network, and my mother or my stepfather really did not love me at all. So I didn't get love. I had been loved by a caretaker in the first 3 years of my life, and I knew what love was. But that's to say, I had been seen as a human being, as a baby, and then I think that allowed me to develop emotionally.
3 months.
No, 3 years.
3 years. Okay, that's
Yes.
important. Yes.
3 years of consistent, no, not every day, but 5 days a week, of caretaking and sweetness and real nurturing.
So you had a reference.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's
So I
important.
had a reference of being.
Yeah, so even though she didn't have it from her biological family, she received it from the caretakers, which she was able to incorporate the understanding of nurturing through that aspect, you know? Wow, this story.
Seen as being innocent and cute, and she healed me. She actually wrapped me on her body with sheets so that she could carry me always, because she must have known that my mother was abusing me.
At 3 years old already? Oh.
In infancy, my mother was abusing me.
That's not in the book?
No.
Okay, interesting. Please continue.
Yes. So I was on her body, and I have had memories of her sweetness, of her being viewed and feeling warm and feeling, this warm love. And I think it gave me a sense of self. And my mother didn't have that, my stepfather really either. So it was cold. There was nothing at home. So my perpetrators gave me certain things that I needed for my personal development. I would not have figured that out as a child, obviously. I didn't know. But I was seen in certain ways by some of the perpetrators. So I attached emotionally to my perpetrators. So that love.
And if you don't know what that's called the Stockholm Syndrome, meaning that you start to feel pity for the people that are hurting you because they give you a sense of narcissism to show the love that they try to get from you, it's Stockholm syndrome. It's a trauma bond, so to speak, and that's what she's talking about. So it may sound sick, but in order to survive, sometimes people have to go there in their mind.
Love that I felt was attachment, which all children will do that. And we attach to whomever is there, whatever adult is there. And I was, for example, my intelligence, my mother never reflected that back to me, but a perpetrator did. Mm-hmm. Or other qualities that I had were very much reflected back by perpetrators, but never at home. So I automatically, felt more connection to the abusers because they were actually giving me things that I needed. Mm-hmm. So there's
Well, think about that a minute. Her abusers were giving her things that her own family, her parents, did never give her. She was getting that from the abusers. So as a small child, you're getting this and you're misconstruing this for being the real thing. It is unreal, JB. It is unreal. Praise and encouragement. You're so right.
Attachment, which has to do with development, child development. And then there's another thing that happened when I was 9 years old that I had an experience. It was a very dark moment. I don't describe it in the book either, but I had an experience where a perpetrator who was absolutely a monster and had shown me that he was absolutely a monster, I had a moment of grace. And in that moment, I end up seeing this monster as the child that was afraid and that had become this man. And I saw all his fears and all his own hang-ups. And I saw very great detail of, him feeling like he was slow and he couldn't follow and feeling ugly and feeling worthless. I saw all of it in this moment. And I felt, I realized that it was a moment where there was an influx of grace where I could see this man through Christ's eyes. Yeah. It was the Christ consciousness that sort of came through me. It didn't feel.
And a lot of people are not going to understand that. How can you have grace when somebody's raping you? How can you have grace for your perpetrator? She is discussing this as a child. In her mind, at that point, she was a child. She was dissociating the best she could, giving this understanding the best she could in order to get through this. So please try not to give her any judgment because she is a survivor.
Like me at all. Mm-hmm.
You saw him with the eyes of God, like a patient.
Yes. And it was the moment of passing, by the way, of a little boy in the network. No.
Another one.
Yes, Wouter. Yes. Wouter. Mm-hmm. So Wouter was my little friend. He was only 7. And it was the moment of his passing that I felt like this light spirit that Wouter was. And then I felt this Christ energy moving through me. And right in that moment when I would have hated this man the most, I actually saw his own child. And I saw that the reflection that he was the little boy who felt slow, which is what Wouter was technically. He was slow. And so that he had to kill that boy.
For what purpose? Because what I would like to understand is their psyche. I understand.
And what she's giving is examples as observed by a child. Even though she's articulating it as a 60-year-old woman, as she's describing it, you can see as a child would be seeing this out of protection, out of misunderstanding, out of confusion, out of all these things that are coming toward them, instead of viewing them as hurt and pain and abuse and neglect, exploitation, they view this as, I didn't have this before from my natural parents who I wanted this connection from. Now I'm getting it from somebody who is doing something to me that I don't understand, but yet I'm focusing on the thing that I wanted the most for my family. And I know that sounds like I'm defending it, and I am not, in no sense of the word, nothing. I'm just telling you how it is associated in the psychological realm of understanding.
A bit through your book, but please elaborate as much as you can, because I really want to understand.
Yes. So I was in the network for 6 years, and so this is the Belgian network. I am Flemish, as we know, and I speak Flemish, but obviously English. I'm much more comfortable with English in this speaking about these subjects.
And the network that she's talking about is Epstein's Island, the Belgian connection, the Belgian network. That's what she's talking about.
Since I've been gone for more than 40 years in Belgium. So
now you live in the States,
and I live in the States.
For the audience,
yeah.
Was that a conscious flight away from what happened here? I guess so.
Yes, it was actually following the instructions of being rescued from the network, and with instructions that included going to New York.
And that was the man you fell in love with, we can say, which was a crook, a criminal.
Yeah.
And we know him. He's famous in Belgium. His name is Patrick Hamers.
Yeah.
So when I think the first time I talked to you on the phone and you mentioned his name, I was like, what? Is that connected? Because he was like the gang leader of the Bende van Nevel. I don't know how to translate that, but it was a famous gang in the 80s that killed 29 people in a mall. So I was 5 years old or something like that, and it was the talk of the town for decades.
And he was the gang leader of that, the Bende van Nevel?
That's what. There were more, but this story has never been cleared up. And in my investigations, I have found that the Bende van Nevel, so the gang of Nevel, let's say, was like a Gladio operation, so a stay-behind network against communism to arouse, how to say that,
And this story that she talks about, she is talking about how she fell in love with the perpetrator, but not the kind of love that we view as love. She fell in love with her abuser with the trauma bond. She was already in a trauma bond. So instead of being a victim, she turned it around and became the rescuer. And it's a whole different dynamic. It's hard to explain just talking out loud. I have to be visually showing you, but if you want to learn more about the trauma bond, Stockholm Syndrome, please do so.
Stabilize the public opinion with shocks so that politics would get more power. Gladio, if people look it up, they'll find it. It's officially denied, of course, like MK Ultra is officially denied and all those things.
Well, I think that David van der Steen, the victim who was 9 years old when his family was shot and killed in in one of those events in the Deleuze,
yes.
I think he saw his face. He saw the face of Patrick Hamers when his mask fell.
Aha. You told me, and he went to the police, and they did not
believe him,
and yeah.
And it's always been downplayed in the media, but I fully believe there's actually Patrick Hamers also told me something when he rescued me, that he wanted me to leave this country, and he said, you don't want to be here in the 80s. So I think that's quite significant, that he knew something was going to happen, and he was part of this. And of course, Paul van den Boeinans was the boss of the network, and he was also involved with these things.
Yeah, because it's an important principle for people who are starting their investigations into the occult, is that terror has always been used as a means to enhance the power of the elites. Like, I recently discovered that the word mafia should be written with one F, because it's an abbreviation of Mazzini Autorizza Furti Incendi e Avvelamenti. And that means as much as Mazzini, Giuseppe Mazzini, which was the unifier of Italy, he was a Mason, 33rd degree. He authorized poisonings, arson, all kinds of terror, so that the local communities in Italy would feel that there's need for a bigger power. And so the unification of Italy has been done through terror. And so when I look at the 80s in Belgium, we had large discussions about the communities, Flemish and Walloon community. We had like 8 governments in 2 years with Martens and all those guys.
Darkness, really.
Yeah, you have like script writers in the CIA when there's a coup.
This is possible. I'm
skeptic.
I come from not being able to go anywhere with my truth. No one wanted to know it. I couldn't find a therapist for 10 years. This is to speak about these things privately. And obviously, I'm not crazy. So if I'm speaking about these things and a therapist says, I don't believe you, which did happen one time, that's them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have philosophized quite a lot on the definition of crazy. And mostly it's just a quantitative issue, isn't it? If you have a minority opinion, you have something in politics which is called the Overton window, and that is the window of acceptable opinion. And if your opinion is outside that,
Oh, I see.
the only thing they can do is either ignore you or ridiculize you or, medicalize you, like you have some condition.
So let me ask you guys a question, whether you're watching it with us right now or whether you're going to be watching this on a replay. Let me ask you a question. Do you believe that somebody who is abused at a young age, who is sexually assaulted, who is beaten, or somebody who faces severe trauma, do you believe that once they work their way through it, such as this woman, she's 60 years old, she spent 30 years of her life, she said, working on herself. Do you believe that working past the trauma brings about a delusion of her survival, meaning that everything that she's replacing with the trauma becomes an obsession to sort, where she's kind of trapped in that and it becomes her existence? Or do you believe that people honestly heal? That is your huge question for the moment. So if you're watching this on replay, you're watching this live, you feel free to answer. They're going to get to that point. She is a survivor. For those of you that come in late, she is a survivor from Epstein's Island. She was trafficked. She was sexually assaulted by multitudes of high-level men. One man she's going to talk about rescued her from the island. And if you don't know about this island, once the children reached a certain age, whether they were 12, 13 years old, they were no longer useful to these men. They were beheaded. So she was literally facing a beheading. And I'll let you hear her story.
It's like you would be at the beach and a pink dragon would come out of the water. That's the equivalent to them.
Right.
And that is changing. That is changing. And I think the internet has a lot to do with that. Like this podcast culture, that's something of the last 5 years. I think they're losing control over the narrative. That I do see.
And that narrative, all the world's resources that end up in their hands are used to protect the lie.
Mm-hmm. And it costs more.
And the lie is that what they do behind closed doors, and is exactly about what I survived. That's the lie.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a bit. Like, because I don't want to be sensationalist. I don't want to be a voyeur talking about the the really dark stuff, but I do think it's important just to state what you have been through. And I wouldn't know where to start. How many times have you been raped? You cannot know, of course, but you have made an estimate. It was about 4,000 times, if I recall correctly.
Well, I don't remember. I did a little calculation.
Yeah.
But let's just say that I, at one point, remembered 200 men, about 200. I've been raped as a child before the age of 12 by more than 200 men.
Huh.
And of course, many of those were repeat offenders. So I know that, it's thousands of times. Okay.
Over 200 men before the age of 12, multitudes of times. Wow. Thank you for being here, April. I know it's a tough subject, and it's really not a Christmassy one, but I wanted to get it playing so people could understand a little more about not only this topic, but to hear a survivor that actually was there on the island.
The exact number isn't important. Once would be too much, but it's just to show the gravity of. And we'll get back to that. There's another thing I'm really interested in. Your mother, she brought you. You described this really well. You had dinner at home, and then she said, "Come on, dress up," and then she brought you to one of those castles, knowing full well what would happen there. What kind of... Actually, Patrick Hamers was the first one telling you she's no good.
Right.
What an irony, because he was no good. He tortured you. He put a pen in your knee, in the back of your knee. And you still have
penknife.
Pen knife in the back of your knee.
Yeah.
Out of some crazy twisted idea of love.
Romance. Yeah.
Yeah. And then later on, I read that he had suffered the same by his father. So these are abuse patterns. Have you any knowledge about your mother being abused? Is that something that has come down the generations?
So my mother has all the symptoms, or had all the symptoms of a sexual abuse survivor, victim, really. And she lost her mother at age 5. She was born in 1939, right before the war. Her father went to a concentration camp during the war. He was a prisoner of war in a concentration camp. He came home in 1944. Her mother was pregnant right away, and in 1945, her mother died. So she was just under 6 years old, which interestingly is the age that she put me in the network.
Yes.
Wow. So she started in the network at age 6. Her mother was age 6 when she lost her mother. Hurt people, and like I always say, patterns repeat themselves over time if you look at them long enough.
Yes.
I was.
Yes.
So my mother acted like a 5-year-old girl.
Yes, the psychology of your mother is incredible. You could actually boss her around until she punished you for doing that.
Right. And that's, unconsciously. So when you say she knew full well, I take issue with that just because her denial was so strong. She had to see herself as a good girl.
The ego wants that.
The ego wants that, but the little girl part that needed that also. So there were this little girl who had to be the good girl.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's true that the ego, you need to see yourself as good, and it's extremely painful and difficult.
The shadow.
To go to the shadow, which of course that's the work, that's the healing.
That's the healing work.
But my mother, with the mentality of a 5-year-old, of a very abused, very heavily sexually abused girl, who really had me as her only victim, my brother probably too, but not as much.
Do you have contact with your brother still?
Minimal.
Minimal. Okay. So yeah.
But my stepfather was my brother's father.
So he's a half brother.
He's a half brother, and I think that my mother didn't put my brother in the network because she would be worried that my stepfather would step in. Whereas with me, my stepfather just let her do whatever she wanted.
Yeah, and he knew.
That it just, I don't have the words.
Or he didn't. I have the impression.
His denial was as strong as hers.
Mhm.
So he had everything to know,
He didn't want.
but he
was away
didn't
a
want to
lot.
know.
He wasn't traveling a lot.
And he was away. And so denial is very powerful. And my mother's denial about herself was like a spell. Like
Yeah.
she had to be good. And so in the face of evidence, my mother would just ignore the
evidence.
The wounds, the limping. I mean,
yeah. That's what Mark Twain says. The Nile is not just a river in Egypt.
That's for sure.
It's indeed very powerful. I also see it in Corona. It's obvious that our governments are pitting people against each other, and when you just share that observation that our prime minister has tried to pit people against each other, they don't want to see it. People don't want to see it. That's a smaller case, okay? But I think when heavy abuse comes along, for instance, she left you in one of those villas for 5 days, starving, and then she came back for you, and it's a very psychological scene you describe, where you hear the car coming up the driveway, then she turns off the key, so there's this tension: will you come out, or will she come to the house? And she doesn't come to the house. She turns on the key again, and then she knows she gets you because you run to the car. Please take me with you. So those kinds of, and would that
she might have thought that I was dead.
This sounds like the mom was just as sick as the people in which she ended up with later on in life. I mean, it's almost like normal. To a lot of us, we would think, how is this normal? 12, how is this normal? A 6-year-old being trafficked, being raped by 200 men before the age of 12. How is this normal, 12? How is this normal? What sounds like this life was just full of dysfunction all the way around. The stepfather didn't step in. Her mother was part of the problem. Hurt people.
Nah, I don't think so.
You don't know what was going on in her head.
Well, yeah.
She might not have known that I was there.
But she knew that you were at that villa, and she knew that you weren't coming. Oh yeah, and then you came into the car, and then she said, "We've been worried sick about you."
There you go.
You ran away. You didn't run away. She brought you.
Right.
So dissociation in her mind, actually healing is a very good word, because it makes
That, Jeff H., if you're ever watching this, is a definition of gaslighting. You ran away when she brought her to that place. It's a psychological tool that many people play with one another in real life when they blame you for something that they did. That is gaslighting.
Association whole again, but she couldn't do it.
Yes, and however, the way she lied to protect her own reputation in her own eyes, like that example that you gave, she comes and gets me, and then she immediately makes me the bad guy.
Yep.
I ran away. It's all my fault. And then she also looked at me. So I am now dirty and, haven't eaten in 5 days. My hair was a mess.
I know. You
and
tried
then
to comb
she
it.
looked at me like that meant that I am this lowly creature.
Mm-hmm.
That proves it. The way I looked, that she was responsible for, proved to her that I am unworthy of being loved by her. And that her mindset because it's crazy, right? We say that's crazy. Her mindset and that denial, and her going and denying even in the face of real evidence.
I mean, at that point, stop me if I'm wrong, most mothers, even if they had made that mistake of taking their child to a place for whatever reason, once they saw their child again and they realized their mistake, they would do everything and anything to protect that child. And this mother did not. She did not. She blamed, by the look of her, as being dirty and unworthy and filthy, and everything that had happened to her gave her a visual representation of everything she already believed about her daughter, because she believed that in herself.
And I came back I had all the wounds on my, that were always visible. And
Cigarette burns.
It was the cigarette burn. It was the cutting, the stabbing, the fish hooks. I mean, that was the torture. After being tortured.
Mm-hmm. But you have been tortured several times.
Yes, but the last one.
Yeah, the one you describe here.
With Michel Nihoul was leading. Yes, those. So I had big crusts all over my body, and my mother, they didn't exist. So in her presence, these crusts just didn't exist, because it would have meant that she was responsible for something. So no, they didn't exist. And everything that she did in the shadow didn't exist. And even though my mother was not at all powerful and she was never in the network, even though she wanted to, but I think her particular mental illness meant that they were not going to let her in because she wasn't safe for them. She would be too happy.
Too happy to torture you.
No, too happy to be bragging that she's part of this.
Yes. She couldn't shut up.
She wouldn't be able to shut up. She didn't have that kind of intelligence that they need. So, however, the world leaders, and so some of those, the people that were on the top of their fame in 1972, I recognized many of them. I've seen them, because when I was with this international player who had me mind controls trained in Germany and who had me trained in France for some time.
You're going to be a pop star, if I recollect.
I was going to be an actress and a singer in France and known there. So it's like a minor celebrity in France. I was trained in...
So she's being used at such a young age, being groomed by all these people for their sexual desires and their warped fantasies. And somehow or another, she makes it to Epstein's Island.
France with an entourage and everything, and mind control, though. It was in a basement.
How do they do it? How do they... You talk about, for instance, the program where sex slaves kill themselves. That's interesting. So they sexually stimulate you, and then they shout in your ear, you cannot betray your man, something like that?
No. They said that if your man ever leaves you, you might as well you should kill yourself.
Yeah. So, but is that enough really to program your mind?
That was not the only one. I've had a lot of suicide programming, and a lot of programming to make sure I wouldn't remember also. For example, the doctor who was in charge of the clinic in Germany, or it was not a clinic, it was a place in Germany, who was in charge of the mind control. His name was Hans Harmsen. He was a very scary guy. What he would do is he would grab my throat, push, and then point at his face and say, "Was bedeutet das?" What does that mean? And then he would strangle me. And he did that repeatedly. So every time, so he would say, what does his face mean? Strangulation. I'm going to die.
Okay.
Strangulation. What does
Association.
his face mean?
Yeah.
And he did it many, many times. When I saw his face,
You already, yeah.
when I saw his picture, my thought was, I don't know him. Very strong thought. I don't know him. And I thought, that sounds like a very strong thought for someone you don't know. Just sit with it.
Yeah.
So I just kept the picture around.
Think of that psychological warfare that was going on with this person, with all these people, all these players, programming a young child, not only for self-preservation, but to manipulate the thoughts into being their actions that they wanted. Very perverse.
And then
It dawned on you.
I got choked. And then I was so choked. Like, what is happening, right? Now I'm having this like body memory and I'm can't breathe and I do yoga, right? So all my yoga techniques just to be able
To breathe. Yeah.
to breathe through this and breathe it through.
And if you don't know what that's called PTSD. Stimuli, Pavlov's dog, starts salivating, even though there's no food there. Psychological programming.
And I breathed it through. That took several days. And then I got his face back and I was like, ah.
I got you.
Yes, that's what it felt like. It's you. And it was not just victorious, but also I felt such hatred for this man. Strange. I never
That's not strange.
saw his human side at all. Pure sadism. And he had been a Nazi. And in fact, very disturbingly, he was the head of the German Planned Parenthood for a long time.
Yeah, of course. The father of Bill Gates was...
The German Planned Parenthood. She was discussing how young babies were sent to where she was at to be killed, to be used, and to be killed. She was taught to be a killer of young babies and young children. She described later on how she performed a killing. We will watch this a little more and then I'm going to cut it because this is a lot for more than an hour.
Also the chief of Planned Parenthood. He founded it.
Margaret Sanger founded it. Margaret Sanger, who was a friend of Hans Hamsen.
Okay. I thought...
And who also spoke. Okay. Margaret Sanger also spoke for the KKK in the United States.
Yeah. It's all so dark. And these are the guys who rule the world, not our politicians.
Well, Hans Hamsen did not rule the world. He clearly was in service of this international networker who owned me for that 1 year.
Yeah, but what I mean by that, of course, these are low lives that have to program you as a slave. But what I mean is that, what is the link with politics? It's very simple. In the 50s, for instance, if a politician would appear in the press as having done dealings with a prostitute, that would have been enough to destroy his public reputation, because the 50s was still very, conservative. Now, but
however, the network was very active, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I work with survivors of satanic ritual abuse and mind control. I counsel them. Mm-hmm. I go from my experience. I'm not a licensed therapist, but from my experience, from my 30 years healing experience, and also from speaking with so many survivors, I can often provide context. When people say, this is crazy, I don't know what this is, and I can say, well, I think it might be that. And then it starts to make sense. I am working with women who are older than me, mm-hmm. who were abused in that time by very, very visible people at that time. So
yeah, I agree. I think it's a culture that has...
And I'm going to pause it right there. And we will get back to this possibly tomorrow or the next day. Like I said, it's a strong topic to really do in one setting, one sitting. When it comes to abuse, when it comes to programming, when it comes to that destroying of the psyche of an individual, which you want to control, everything she was talking about is right on point with the psychological brainwashing or programming, whichever you want to call it, of the breakdown and control of somebody that is not as strong at that point mentally, physically, to know what's going on is wrong. That's why a lot of times individuals in true crime, they seek out drug addicts, they seek out prostitutes, they seek out a lot of different types of people that in tune they can control and manipulate. I hope that you enjoyed this. Not enjoyed it in the sense that it brought you pleasure, but in the sense that it actually gives you a visual context of a survivor who luckily made it off that island and is able to share her strengths, hopes, and experiences with other people and has been able to help people through her own healing. I hope that you join me the next time I'm live. If you don't have the notifications pushed, please make sure you go to the webpage, 12 Gauge Investigative, and push the notification bell because it seemed to work tonight. So please do that. And if you're not a subscriber and you enjoyed so far what I'm doing with this Epstein stuff, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. And those of you that are subscribers, thank you so much for coming in and joining me tonight. And like I always do, Maestro, cue that music, and happy Christmas Eve. Till next time, my name is 12 Gauge, and this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative.